You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 164, with Dawrance, Constant. And today we're starting scared on the road to constant living.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, Men of Abundance? I am Wally Carmichael, your host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community. And today we are paying it forward in a huge way with our featured guest, Dawrance Constant. Wait until you hear this story. Unbelievable. This conversation right here is everything that embodies living a life of abundance and having an abundant mindset from start to finish. I seriously admire everything that Dawrance has done in his own life for himself and for his family. And then he takes it even further and starts paying it forward, living the life of abundance that I always describe and doing so much for so many other people. It just fires me up so much, and I'm so looking forward to introducing you to Dawrance. But guys, again, before I introduce you to Dawrance, before I introduce you to our featured guest today and get into this amazing conversation, I want to be sure that you're not practicing a scarcity mindset by keeping all of this information to yourself. You know, I believe it's a lie that information is power. Information is only power when it's shared. And you're going to be abundant in your life today by paying it forward and sharing this episode and sharing Men of Abundance with everyone you come in contact with, or like I always say, at least the ones you like. They are going to come back and thank you for introducing you to Men of Abundance, or at least some way, somehow, it's going to come back to you. That's how it works. When you pay it forward, you get much back in return. So make sure you share Men of Abundance. You can do that in so many ways, and it all depends on where you're listening to this. So if you're listening on iTunes or on your podcast player, there's a share button. Just use the share button and share it in a text, share it in a Facebook message, share it on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever it is you want to do. If you're listening to this on Facebook, share the post, or if you're listening to it on the website, copy the link and share the post. However you feel more comfortable sharing it, just make sure you share this information with other guys. And leave a rating and review on iTunes. It really boosts us up so other people can find us organically and find these amazing conversations here at Men of Abundance. And guys, don't forget you can join our Men of Abundance community and get in on the conversation by going to menofabundance.com/members, or just click on the members tab at the top of any of the pages at menofabundance.com. I look forward to seeing you in the group and having these conversations with you. Now, let me introduce you to Dawrance Constant. Dawrance Constant is an entrepreneur with an awesome little family, beautiful family. They've been traveling around the world nonstop since January 2017. They've made a point this year to live out their dreams. But the story surely doesn't start there. Dawrance is going to share his conversation with us on where he came from and how he got to where he's at today. But basically, Dawrance has been in jobs he's hated, just like many of you have. Or maybe some of you still do. He has been depressed, he has been way over his head in debt, and he has felt stuck in a bad situation. Dawrance knows how it feels to be down on your luck. But he got through it, and he freed himself to a point to where he wants to help others. Why? He loves seeing people who are not where they want to be transition to be who they are excited to be. Men of Abundance, it is my honor to introduce you to Dawrance Constant. Dawrance, welcome to Men of Abundance, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I've got a pretty busy morning, but I'm excited to be talking to you and a couple other amazing folks here following up after you.
All right, fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Cool. So where are you at in the world?
Right now, I'm actually in Medellín, Colombia.
Nice. I have, let's see, I went to Colombia many, many years ago, but I didn't get off the tarmac. We were on our way to Bolivia, and we had to stop. This is a funny story, actually. It just dawned on me. I just thought about this, and I knew you were in Colombia, but we actually stopped there. I was in a C-130. I was in the Army, and we loaded a whole pallet we had to break it down because we didn't have room for the pallet, of literally, no joke, Juan Valdez coffee. And we tucked each box into little nooks and crannies and then took off onto Bolivia. I guess the pilots were making some purchases or something. I don't know. I was a young soldier at the time, so I didn't question it.
Oh, really? Really? Okay.
That's my remembrance of Colombia.
Yeah, Juan Valdez coffee is a huge deal here. They've got shops all over the place.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So before we get too much into the show here, Dawrance, what I really like to do is start out the show basically the same way I start every single morning, which is with an attitude of gratitude. What do you have to be grateful for today?
Well, I feel like I've got so much to be grateful for right now, but one of the main things right now I'm just really excited about and grateful for is to be doing what I love to do most, which is really share what I've learned with others, and hopefully make another person's journey in life that much easier, that much better, so they can learn a lot from my mistakes. I get a lot of joy from that. Hence why I agreed to be on this on your podcast.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I wanted you on the show, because that's exactly what I'm up to too. As a matter of fact, we have to give a shout out to the man who introduced you and I, which is Michael Connelly.
Oh, Michael Connelly, he's an amazing guy who's doing some amazing things. So I definitely appreciate that connection, because now I even started listening to your podcast, and you've got some great episodes on there. Really love it, what you're doing there.
Oh, wow. I really appreciate that. Yeah, him and I had a conversation, and we had been on each other's calendar for quite some time, and then finally got a chance to talk about a week or so ago. And he said, as soon as we got done with the show, he said, I got somebody you absolutely have to talk to, whether you get him on your show or not. And I know you've got an amazing podcast coming up here pretty soon, too, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. But before we got started here, I talked a little bit about what you've done professionally and what you're doing. But we really like to get a little bit more personal. We like to get to know the man behind the abundance. So if you would, get a little bit more personal with us, share with us a little bit more about who you are, what got you down to Colombia, and a few things like that. And we'd love to get a little bit personal here.
Well, sure. I'm originally from Haiti. That's my heritage. I was raised in South Florida. My parents came here really looking to have a better life and break some of the generational issues we had of things such as poverty and not having an abundance of opportunities. So I've been here since I was 3 years old. Went to college here in Florida, and upon graduating college, decided I was going to be a Wall Street titan, and I ended up working for a couple of investment banks. I did a stint at Goldman Sachs. I did a stint at Merrill Lynch up in the Northeast, and even was a finance analyst for Johnson & Johnson. And one thing I learned while living in the Northeast is I was not going to be a Wall Street titan. I really didn't like the work. But over the years, the next few years, I've figured some things out. And I learned I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I did that. I've been doing that for the last several years. I've owned Cricket Wireless stores, and in the last year or so, I've sold my stores, and decided to take my family around the world for about a year or so. And we've been traveling through Asia, Europe, and now we're here in Colombia, and have decided now to stay. But there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs in between that. But I just wanted to give you guys like a high level. What's been going on with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're definitely going to get into those downs and the kick in the gut moment. I know you must have a few with everything that you've done, everywhere you've been so far in life. What is it about Colombia that has made you want to stay there with your family?
Wow. Medellín, I'm actually specifically in Medellín, Colombia now. And I had no idea much about this place instead of a few blogs I read, and I actually had a friend that came down here and decided to stay himself. And what I've learned and why we're here is this is a place where the weather is incredible. You're talking about year-round weather between 75 to maybe 80 degrees every day. Um, you've got first world amenities and accommodations for third world prices. So, I mean, anything you can imagine that you'd have back home in the States, we've got it here. But for 75% less most of the time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. The people here are just so nice. It's unbelievable sometimes, some of the things that they just go out of their way to help strangers like myself get done. For instance, if I'm just standing at a corner just looking around, trying to figure something out, I'll at least have 3 people come up to me and ask me, can they help me, get to X place, or if I'm lost. There's that. There's, amazing culture here. There's amazing food. And yeah, everything just culminates to a place where we've decided to stay. And on top of that, it's only about a 3-hour flight back to South Florida, where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
To if I ever need to do some business, close a deal, or see family, I can be down there and really quickly.
Wow. Now, that's very impressive. And see, guys, this is what I'm talking about getting outside of your comfort zone, doing things you wouldn't normally do. And I was just working on a chapter in my book on this very thing, and I'm getting out of your norm. Even myself, I'm thinking about what you're saying here, and in my mind, I'm thinking the only thing that I know of Colombia really is, one, the coffee, as I just talked about, and 2, the stuff that I see on TV in all the movies and all the drug lords and all the killings and all this kind of stuff going on down there. And it's so far from the truth. And I found this throughout my travels throughout the world that, yeah, there are some heinous people all over the world, but we try to have, Hollywood and the media and, so many other things, just stories that we hear as we're growing up in life that about certain places, and we're fearful of it and we stay away from it, when, as it turns out, it's an amazing place to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Wally. I'll tell you this much to just add to that point. My whole perception of Medellín, Colombia, really came from just the show Narcos and Pablo Escobar. And that was the only image I had of this place. So even coming down here with my family, had it not been for a few friends who'd already been here and, told me a lot of what to expect, I wouldn't have ever gone here. It was never on my radar. Mm-hmm. And, now having taken that leap and, allowing myself to be potentially uncomfortable and coming here and just being thrilled that I can have an opportunity to live in a place like this, and go beyond what the media has fed me and take something and give it my own opinion.
Right. Absolutely. And, it's kind of, let's bring this home a little bit too, because this is something that, based on what you just said, make my own opinion. When I go into a new work area, or even when I was going to a school or something like that, and they'd say, oh, that teacher's an ass. You're not going to like this dude. He's this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, okay. Or that employee is this, that, and the other that I'm getting ready to inherit as a boss, as a supervisor. And I'll say, okay, I appreciate that. Thanks for the feedback. I'm going to go ahead and make my assessment on my own on either case. And generally, it's really the way they acted towards you, towards that individual that's sharing that information with me. Sometimes it's true, but many times it's not it's the other individual's perception and the way that they colluded with that individual, either as a supervisor or as a student or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. A person can only give you their own perspective or advice based on their level of consciousness, and that you just can only take that with a grain of salt.
100%. Absolutely. You just summed it up really great there. So how long did you live in Haiti before you moved to Florida?
I lived in Haiti until I was 3 years old, so these are memories I don't have.
Yeah, but I know you got a lot of stories and stuff like that. I asked that because I've recently been studying poverty and the reasons for poverty and how to help poverty, how poverty doesn't need help. And I'm talking about some of these developing countries as a whole, even from the individual to developing countries. And I'm learning so many things, and Haiti consistently comes up in a lot of these case studies. And that, just one thing, for instance, that it really stuck in my mind was really an aha moment was like years ago, people used to eat rice in Haiti 2 to 3 times a week. And there were rice farmers, and they were doing pretty well, and they were doing okay. But then all of these other organizations, well-meaning organizations, from all over, not just the United States, but other countries, would come in and just bring in loads and loads of rice. And then what the after effect of that was that nobody really noticed or thought was going to happen was you put the guys who had these rice farms out of business. Now people eat rice 2 to 3 times a day because it's free. And the same concept has happened with free shoes, free clothing, and so on and so forth. And it's taken I'm trying to learn a little bit more about this whole concept and poverty and, how to help people. And to me at this point, and I love what you're doing, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because one of the most amazing ways to help people is to connect them with other people. And that's why cell phones are such a huge help in developing countries, is because it connects them with each other in commerce and in personal life as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a very interesting point that you bring up. And one of the reasons why I think a lot of us are doing these kind of shows is we're really wanting to not just give something to someone in the physical form, but actually give them the ability to think, to be able to develop whatever it is that they want in life. Because sometimes when we're just giving things to folks, we're sometimes doing them an injustice, right?
Right.
That can actually grow into negatives that we didn't even think of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And one of the documentaries I was watching, one of the companies that I've personally praised for the last year since I first heard of them, and I still do, they're doing great things, is Tom's Shoes. Now, Tom's Shoes, for every shoe that you purchase that's purchased, another unit is given to a child in need. And now they got these hundreds and, I don't know, maybe thousands of shoes going into a developing community. And the after effect of that is, yeah, great, you got these kids' shoes, but now they don't have to buy shoes. So the cobblers and the shoe stores that were in those areas now have to relocate to Europe or completely go out of business. And now what the founder, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the founder of Tom's Shoes, what I understand they're doing now, since they realized this, because they were talking to somebody specifically in Haiti, and he said, this is the effect of it. We love the idea that people want to help, but that's not the way to help, to just give us stuff, because we want to become independent, not dependent as a nation and as a people. And so now what I understand that they're doing is they're actually helping people start their own business and start their own distributing process within those countries to actually help them grow, like you were just saying, help them add value to their community as opposed to just receiving. They're also able to give and earn,
Yep.
And earn a living for themselves, which is ultimately what they want to do.
Totally. That makes complete sense.
Yeah. And, these are just, it's like you said, we do these shows. I have these conversations with guys like yourself because I want a deeper level of understanding. I want to be able to really help and not cause more harm. As a medic, as an Army medic, one of our biggest things was always we're going to do what we can for our patients and not cause further harm. So it's not an easy thing to do sometimes.
Right.
So, all the things that you've mentioned already, you've traveled, you've done a lot of things, you're an entrepreneur, you're helping countless people. Along the way, every one of us, whether we're entrepreneurs or not, or just, living our life, daily lives, we all have those kick in the gut moments. And here, we like to highlight this a little bit here on Men of Abundance because we like to point out the fact that all of us have these kick in the gut moments. It's what we do afterwards with our experience that really makes us the abundant leader that we really want to be. So if you could share one of those kick in the gut moments with us and really make us feel that.
Well, sure. As I was telling you, I had some corporate posts before I became an entrepreneur. And one of the ones that was, really stood out is when I was working for Johnson & Johnson. I really wanted this opportunity to become a finance analyst with them. They had an incredible program that was going to propel me into a level of leadership within the firm very quickly. When I got the job, when I finally got the job, within about 4 to 5 months of me getting this job, Wally, I was already being threatened to be fired.
Wow.
And now keep in mind, I'd gotten this job not too long after graduation. This was during the recession. This is during the time where people weren't getting jobs in my field of finance. In fact, folks were getting laid off, and even companies like Lehman Brothers were closing. Some of the giants. And to get this job, I traveled to a conference, networked. I did so many things to even be in this position. And then within 4 months of being there, I was already being threatened to be terminated. I can tell you it was a very devastating moment for me. I felt like I wasn't adequate. I felt like that I was a failure, that I was trying, really hard, but wasn't really getting there. And even in that moment, I started having images of losing my job and not being able to pay for my apartment, having these just negative, dark images of what was going to happen to me. For instance, if I got fired, I wasn't going to be able to get another job in that space because I couldn't, get a referral. So, and at a certain point in time, I'd even become clinically depressed, Wally. And so it was hard, man. It was really hard. And truth be told, I was eventually fired. And what happened though in that moment was, and through that process, is a number of things. Okay, I started being honest with myself and really determining what I really wanted to do with my life. Okay, because I really was honest. I said, the real reason I wanted that opportunity, Wally, is because I was doing it for the money. Okay. Mm-hmm. I wanted to, earn a certain amount. I'd come from a certain background that wasn't as privileged, and I wanted to do it for the money. And one of the reasons I wasn't so great at it is because I didn't really have a passion in it. Okay.
Yeah.
That was one. Two, frankly, I hated being in the Northeast because it was cold, it was dreary, the winters were horrible. I never even had a winter in the Northeast before, and I'm coming from Florida, the sunshine all year state. So I had to take a moment and really be honest with myself. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in doing so, I started mapping out what I really wanted to do in life. What I wanted my life to look like in years later, and I read a book, and I wish I could tell you that book, but it talked about what we should probably do with our lives is taking our talents, matching them up with our passions, and matching them up with hard work that we're willing to put in to achieve a vision. And I mapped out those three things, and I made a decision that this world that I had been pursuing just for the money wasn't going to bring the value to my life that I was looking for. So I shot down to South Florida, and I took a role as a salesperson for JP Morgan Chase. And because it matched what I love to do, I still liked finance, investments. I was talented in sales. And I had a passion for persuading people, and I did that really well for about 1.5 years, and was very successful at it. And towards the end, the company decided that they weren't going to keep paying us the kind of pay they gave us previously. They actually dropped down our pay significantly, and it forced me to reassess some things. And that moment of that kick in the gut moment, as you call it, was me realizing that despite what I do, when I work for folks, I can't control, or it's way more difficult for me to control what I'm going to get out of this situation. Okay. So once I realized that moment, I knew I had to make a change.
Yeah, and so what was that change? It's my understanding that at that point, after talking with Michael, because he told me a little bit about your story, and I looked into it a little bit further as well, but then you you had some specific skills that it was Cricket Mobile that contacted you or something like that, and then you started that franchise. How'd that all work out? Am I getting that completely wrong?
So what actually happened was while I was still working at JP Morgan, because I was so frustrated that I'd put so much work into this place, and that I was in a space where they cut commissions. I'd gotten a new boss. That new boss wasn't pushing me up for the promotion that I thought I deserved. One day, man, I just decided that, hey, I'm just going to go to work, and because I was just so distraught, and I'm just going to figure out how other people are making money, because I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I wasn't sure when I was going to do it, but it was always something in me. So I on that day off that I took, I started going to different stores and flea markets and businesses, just trying to gather up ideas, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And one idea came to mind as I was just going to different places was cell phones, and how cell phones were such a big deal in the markets the international markets that I had been traveling to, and not just a big deal, but that the no contract space in other countries was thriving, whereas here in the States, we were still on contracts. We're still giving folks our social security number for those things. So I said to myself, if America, being one of the largest economies, is not doing what the Western world is doing yet, eventually it'll be there. Mm-hmm. So I surveyed the market, and I reached out to a small company that was just penetrating the U.S. market for the no contract cell phone space. They were offering no contract cell phones for a third of the cost of the bigger players. And I reached out to them, and they actually gave me, believe it or not, they gave me a contract to sell their services without me having a store, without me having to put any capital up, except for about $20 to buy the SIM cards, and said, hey, go for it, man. You can just start selling our services.
Wow. Yeah,
and
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was incredible. So what I did was I started selling them outside of work, in random parking lots, out of work, to some of my customers. I say, hey, if I save you some money here on your investment or make you money here, I've got another opportunity for you. So after work, we'd meet up. I'd sell them cell phone service. And I did that for about a month. And I had some small successes, but they were enough to motivate me to believe I could open a store. And I reached out to my mother, who told me that, my uncle had a storefront and he'd be willing to rent half of it to me for about $300 a month, which was great because I didn't have much capital. and he rented the store out to me. And to be honest with you, though, before I even could commit to yes, I was still very afraid to even jump out and do this, because my thoughts were, man, though I'm not liking what's going on here at work, I've got a stable job.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
I've got a stable job. There's at some point in time the trajectory could change, and at least something safe here, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Though I was still afraid in doing this, something in me still wanted more than I had already. And I just started to kind of just paint the worst case scenarios for myself. If I did this business and things didn't work out, and I also pointed the best case scenarios if I did this business and things worked out. Mm-hmm. My worst case scenario was, if this thing didn't work out, I could always get another job somewhere eventually. Right. My best case scenario is this thing worked out so well, and I would actually be able to live the dreams I wanted to live. And I decided, and I thought to myself, what would happen? How would I feel if I never did this and just stayed at home? And stayed at what I had. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'd really regret this.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that would have been the biggest one for me personally.
That would have been the biggest one, that what if factor. If what if I'd never wanted to be that guy, later on in life saying what if.
Right.
So I made the decision to just start scared.
That's amazing. Yeah, and that's very common. I hear that so often from so many other people who, stepped out of their job or, many, many scenarios, but all basically it came down to the same thing, that little bit of security that they had, even though the track record proved to them that you're really not as secure as you think you are. It's an illusion. Especially they had just recently lowered your income. So that was a key in itself right there. That's the reason why you started looking for something else to begin with. Then you find something that's working and you can do, and all you got to do is invest a little bit more time and a tiny little bit of money that you had. You had a great opportunity to jump at it, and you were still on the fence going, what if it doesn't work? But it is working. So I get it, man. I totally get it. And a lot of other guys out there do too. And all I can say is, take that jump, take that leap. Eventually you can get another job, like Dawrance just said, man. It's just amazing, amazing story.
Yeah, so I decided to start scared, and I opened up the shop with my budget was about, which was about $3,000 in total. And if you know anything about the cell phone industry, that's nothing. Nowadays, it's about 3 iPhones in total, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So I started this little shop, and I didn't know. I'll tell you all, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't know about cell phones. The average consumer knew more about cell phones than I did, and I was opening a business. And so I dedicated myself to really learning the craft. And I'll tell you this much though, within about a few months, we started getting customers, and I was doing way better than I even thought I was going to do. We were actually making money.
Imagine that.
And it was such an amazing feeling to have people leave their homes and actually come to my store and bring me money. I couldn't believe it. And within the first year, I'm thinking to myself, because I was making more money than I ever thought I'd be making in that time, or had made before, even at any of my jobs, frankly. So I started thinking of expansion, and I was going to, open a few more stores, get on some investors, etc. And as I was doing that, AT&T reached out to me, let me know they were launching a new brand, and they wanted me to be one of their first partners in South Florida to launch that brand. And so they gave me an exclusive license, which is a total of 1 of 8 to open stores all across the nation. And I was floored. And they reached out to me and somehow heard of my little success and decided that I would be one of the folks to launch their new brand.
That is really interesting. And you know what? It just dawned on me too. And this happens as I talk to so many people. I live out here in Hawaii, and I lived in an area called Iroquois Point. I was out on the beach, and I was getting some stuff. I needed this my wife was looking for a dog kennel type of thing. And the guy he put it up on the Facebook, buy, sell, trade stuff. And the guy that I was talking to that was selling it was relocating back to Arizona, which is my home state. And he had started several cricket other types of businesses and a franchise, and he was doing very well. In fact, where he was at before he came here to Hawaii, they called him and said, hey, he put his name on a list, I guess, to open up stores in Hawaii. So they called him one day and said, hey, go ahead. If you're willing to open up in Hawaii, you got to be there in 2 weeks. And we're going to have 3 stores on the Big Island. And he just packed up and left and went and did that. Then now he recently sold those, and he's going to Arizona to open up a few more stores. So it's definitely a lucrative way to go even still today. But you were just put in the right positions. I call that divine intervention, man. I mean, you were put in the right places in the right time and made the right decisions. And you just made decisions. Let's put it that way. It could have been the wrong decision, but you made a decision. And, look at where you're at now.
Yeah, I tell you this, and you're right about that, because even when that opportunity came about, I was still nervous because, I was making a decision as to whether I wanted to do it on my own or which I'd have complete freedom or go under a franchise. But after weighing the options, I said to myself, this is a billion-dollar company that's going to be backing me. Do I want to compete with them, or do I want to join them?
Yeah.
So I decided to join, and it was a great decision at the time. I opened my first store with the funds that I had, and AT&T even worked out a deal where they called it market development funds, but they pushed about $30,000 into my first door, and that's how bad they wanted to develop the market. And so they actually gave me money to start the stores. Right, this is not a loan.
Yeah.
So I opened one door because that's all I had the funds enough to do. And we did really well. I mean, fantastic, in fact. We did the numbers we were doing in our first 4 or 5 months of business are the kind of numbers they expected a mature store that had been open for about 2 or 3 years. So in that that attracted some attention, and it attracted some investors who decided they wanted to invest in the business with me, and we opened a few more doors throughout South Florida. And so these several doors were also doing well, and I know they were doing well because of the experience I had from my previous first store called Constant Mobile. Mm-hmm. I did that for about another 3 or 4 years, and towards the end, to be candid, I started losing the passion for the business, and wanted to do something I felt was more inspiring for myself and more exciting, to solve problems that I wanted to solve. And so what I ended up doing was deciding whether I wanted to sell the business or not, and then it goes to that same moment of being afraid, because I had because of the security, right? I had a business that was doing really well. It was financially stable, but it wasn't allowing me to travel around the world and live a location independent business, and also be in a space where my wife could spend also more time at home because she had her job. So I had to decide, what did I really want? Back to that space of just, fictional security, or living my best life and doing what I wanted to do out of it. So I had to make a choice then. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, in 2015, when I thought of it, I decided not to do that. I decided to live the safe life, and I kept the business for a year longer than I think I was supposed to. And it wasn't until the next year, in the third quarter of 2016, I garnered enough courage to sell the business, because I was at a point where I said, man, I've got to live this kind of life. What's the point of doing this much work if you can't live the life that you want to live,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people get to that point and realize they're not living the life they want to live, but they just live the rest of their life pissed off and die a miserable individual. And, I'm painting it a little bit worse than what it really is, but the fact of the matter is they didn't live the way they wanted to, and they end up being that grumpy old man sitting on the front porch yelling at the kids to get off their lawn type of thing. That's just my little analogy that I think of, that I don't want to be that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So how did the Constant Living Show, it's getting ready to launch here pretty soon. How did the Constant Living Show come about? And by the way, how do you end up with a name like Constant, and then you have the Constant Mobile and the Constant Living? That's just amazing. And my name's Wally Carmichael. I couldn't do that. That's why I have Men of Abundance, man.
So the way that came about is when I finally got the courage to sell the business, my wife and I decided, hey, we wanted to live around the world. And so we gave ourselves a date 4 months later to be able to sell the business, pack up all our things, put things in storage, lease the house, sell the cars, and we were going to be in Thailand in 4 months, and we're going to live around the world starting from Thailand and beyond. And part of what I was telling you before is I wanted to solve problems that I like solving, and a passion of mine is actually helping people. And I wanted to find an avenue to do that, and that's where Constant Living came about. And through constant living, I plan on helping people to live the life that they truly want to live, but also give them practical steps of doing so. So I'm a huge advocate of lifestyle design.
Mm-hmm.
This is creating a lifestyle where your work revolves around your lifestyle versus your lifestyle revolving around your work. Okay, so that's not just waiting for the weekend to enjoy yourself. That's not having to miss important moments of your life for friends, maybe friends and family, because of work. That's living around the world if you choose. So creating a lifestyle that, again, allows you to focus on your lifestyle, and the work that you do will support it, but it's not the focus, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm all 100% with you, man.
Okay. And then with constant living, I'm teaching people how to think better, because I believe, Wally, when you think better, you're going to do better. Okay. Because basically our life, the reality of our life, I think all starts with thought, right? Because our thoughts become our actions, and our actions becomes our decisions, which in turn become our results, and our life is manifested from there. So if we can start thinking better, we'll do better in our life. And part of my constant living is going to be breaking down, deconstructing the thought process of folks who have what we want, so we can utilize their thoughts to implement them in our life and live that better life. And then the third part of constant living is I'm highlighting real estate investing and online business as means to have a lot of that freedom that we want in life, because I think those two businesses are very unique in that they provide location independence, residual incomes, and an opportunity to make a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And add a lot of value to other people's lives.
And also add a lot of value to other people's lives. So it's like we're hitting a lot of points that a lot of us want in life, without having to have a huge compromise on the type of lifestyles that we want to live.
Man, I love it. Absolutely love it. So, Dawrance, we're at the point where we're going to pay it forward. You ready to do that?
All right, let's do it.
Outstanding. So share 1 to 3 actionable steps that men of abundance can take today.
1 to 3 actionable steps. The first thing I've got to say is you've got to have a vision, okay? Take that time and set up that vision for your life. I see a lot of folks who are just living but don't have that vision. Once you have that vision, take the steps, write down that vision, and create actionable steps to achieve that vision. And even highlight the resources that you don't have, and commit yourself to be resourceful. Because though you don't have that thing in your life right now, you can go out and get it. There's no lack of resources. There's a lack of resourcefulness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we're talking on this abundance mentality is we're enhancing your mentality to realize that there are an abundance of resources. You just have to get rid of that scarcity mindset, get out of your comfort zone, and go get it.
Absolutely.
So what daily habits make up the biggest impact in your life?
The daily habit that's made a huge impact in my life is taking a moment before my day and visualizing what success is going to look like. And on top of that, envisioning some of the things that could derail it and how I'll handle it in my emotional state. Because once I can anticipate those things, when those things come forward, which many times they do, sometimes they don't, I can handle them just as I would handle the good. So when they come forward, I don't lose my temper. I just can be more fluid in the success of my day.
Man, I dig that. Absolutely lovely. So what are you reading or listening to that you'd recommend to our abundant leaders, and why?
The best book that I'm reading right now is, it just wrapped up, is Seth Godin's Tribes. This is a book about creating a tribe of people around you that you can lead to achieve what you want to achieve in life, that will help also other people. It's like a movement. I believe great things are not just done by one person, they're done by many people. And that book really teaches a lot of practical steps on how to build a tribe that's going to support your movement and really get things done.
Yep. It takes a village for sure. So what do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance, Dawrance?
I think, in my experience, what holds people back is that fear, that fear many times comes from ourselves. That fear that is inside that is saying you're not adequate enough, you don't have enough resources. Why you? Maybe it should be someone else. Once we're able to minimize that voice and conquer that voice, we're able to do great things because we have all that we need already. It's just going out there and manifesting it. So I think that's what holds a lot of people back. That's what has held me back, and I make it a practice to minimize that voice and just push through it and start scared, despite that scarcity mindset that we can sometimes have in our lives.
Yeah, excellent. I'm glad you said that. And it's not easy by any means, but what does help, it helps me anyway, and I'll just put this on myself, is having somebody there, having an accountability partner, having a mastermind group of people that, know where I'm at in life and can help me push through it. Ultimately, I got to do it, but I always need that somebody there to kind of help me dissolve some of that fear and those inconsistent information that I'm just telling myself is the reason why I'm not moving forward. So what does living, you've already mentioned it quite a few times, and we're just going to bring it all in together in this question, but what does living a life of abundance mean to you?
You know what? Living a life of abundance is looking at the world as a place of vast opportunity, vast template to just provide value, okay? Not as a place that's created to bring me down. So once I started changing my thought process in that sense, the world has really opened up to me, man. That perspective, because now I'm looking, any type of situation I look at, I see myself succeeding in it in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be the way I thought of it from in the beginning, but I always succeed in some way, shape, or form, even when I fail, because I learn from those moments.
Wonderful. Absolutely love that answer. Wonderful, 100%. So we're going to close this up, Dawrance. Amazing conversation, just like I knew it would be, man. I appreciate all your information and wisdom and your stories that you shared with us. What did we not talk about that you'd like to ensure our Men of Abundance gets out of our conversation?
Sure. I would love for folks to follow my podcast. It's not launched yet. It's launching on November 20th of this year. You can follow me at www.constantliving.com or Facebook at Constant Living. I love to help folks, so definitely connect with me, or even on my Instagram, constantliving.com. Constant Living on Instagram.
Excellent. We'll have all of that linked up in the show notes at menofabundance.com. Again, I really appreciate your time, man, and I look forward to talking with you much more, because you and I have so much in common. We think so much alike, and I look forward to hearing your show.
Hey, Wally, it's been a pleasure being on your show. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to spread some of this message I've been wanting to get out there and help people. And I thank you for this show that you actually have out there that is giving people so much value in their lives. Really do. And again, it's a pleasure.
My pleasure, man. Aloha.
Aloha. Bye.
Guys, I want to end you with this. If you do say, what if, or if you have ever said, what if, answer the question by taking the action after the if. Do not let that if go to your grave with you. Live the ellipsis after the if. The ellipsis are those little 3 dots, in case you don't know. But seriously, don't be that grumpy old man at the end of your years, sitting on the porch, pissed off at all the young kids running around because they got so much youth and so much potential in front of them, and then try to live vicariously through them or through somebody else. Live your life, man. You've only got one life. You've heard me talk about this before, the dash. The days that are on your gravestone, the day you were born and the day you died. There's a dash in there. Live your dash. It's what happens there that really makes a big difference in the people's lives that you leave behind, because those are experiences that you're leaving behind with the people that you love and the people that love you. I want you to live today, and I want you to live your life of abundance and always pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.